What is going on YouTube? Running on Sports back here with another video. Today is our 2021 preseason week 1 review, or preview I should say, and got a lot of games to talk about, 16 games for all 32 teams, and after yesterday's game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Dallas Cowboys, I think it was a pretty good sample of what preseason football is like. Obviously not the most exciting games, and your best players aren't going to play the entire game. Not going to play much, especially in week 1, and we'll probably see that for the first week. Second week they'll play a little more, and third week probably won't play much or even if at all. But it was a good game to see how each of those teams are doing, and it was great to kick off the season. And so now football is here weekly, and it's a great time of year. And so we're really excited about that. And if you are excited too, subscribe to this channel down below, and follow our social media pages at runningun_sports on Instagram and at runningunsports on TikTok. Be the first to know when we upload our videos. And just today, the day I'm filming this video, uploaded 3 NFL videos, and depending on what day this video will come out, could be the 4th, which would be crazy. And I'm enjoying putting these videos out. It's a lot of fun. And so just please give a follow on our social media pages and subscribe. Anyways, let's get right into it with some storylines. Justin Jefferson, Vikings wide receiver, has suffered an AC sprain while making a diving catch in practice, and right now it's, quote, reportedly not serious. So, good news for Vikings fans. We saw Chase Claypool last week, or not last week, just yesterday, make a diving catch where he hurt his arm, they believe. And we'll talk about that in just a couple seconds. But it's, you never want to lose a guy like that, and hopefully it is not serious. And I'm sure the Vikings fans are hoping that it's not serious and that he should be able to play week 1, which that's really the main goal. If someone gets injured right now during practice, I don't think the coaches are really going to care about them being able to be available for week 1 of the preseason or week 2 of the preseason. They just want to be able to play in the regular season when it actually matters. And so I think that is really what the main focus is right now, and we'll see if he's there. Most likely sounds like he's going to be there, and that's good news for Minnesota Vikings fans, and good to hear. Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, should have won rookie of the year last season. Obviously did not, to Justin Herbert, and kind of a quarterback centered award, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, he's still a great season, made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. So I'm excited to see what he does this next season with the Vikings. Steelers coach Mike Tomlin says that wide receiver Chase Claypool is, quote, okay after injury scare on Thursday's game. That is coming from at Around the NFL on Twitter. So go give them a follow for the update. So that's good news for them. And he was in street clothes in the second half, and he looked to be fine. Wasn't receiving any medical attention, and I think he looked okay. And so great news for Steelers fans. Him and Juju Smith-Schuster splitting the load. Juju Smith-Schuster, I remind you, only on a 1-year contract, so he could be gone in Pittsburgh after this year, and Chase Claypool could be the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL. Not the NFL, but on the Pittsburgh Steelers organization, and I think that Chase Claypool could definitely do it. But Juju Smith-Schuster and Chase Claypool make that team a whole lot better, and with the quarterback situation in question right now, either way, that quarterback is going to have 2 solid receivers to throw to, and a decent tight end in Eric Ebron. So moving on, now we're going to be talking about some of the games this upcoming week. We're going to start out with the Washington football team versus the New England Patriots. And looking at the injury report right now, Washington has a few injuries for themselves. David Sharp, offensive tackle, is out. Kyle Allen, quarterback, is questionable. So those are really the 2 main injuries for them. And, I think that obviously is not good, especially the offensive line. But I think that it's going to be interesting. The Washington football team with Ryan Fitzpatrick as their starting quarterback. Ryan Fitzpatrick did not start last year for the whole season. As most of you know, it was replaced in the middle of the season. And so I think that this is going to be a good game. And the Patriots are going to have probably one of the better preseasons just because of the amount of depth that they have, whether it's at wide receiver or defense or even quarterback for that matter. Mac Jones, Jarrett Stidham, and Cam Newton, obviously, all back there is a very deadly trio. And, they're all very good players. And, you know, I think that at least two of them, Jarrett Stidham and Mac Jones, could be NFL starters. And it's going to be nice to get our first look at Mac Jones and how he'll do against a pretty solid defense that I don't think that he'll probably have starting reps and be with the ones in the first series. But the Washington football team still have a very deep defensive team, and I think that they will challenge Mac Jones, and it's going to be interesting to see how he does. So moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Game will be on Thursday at 4:30 at the same time as the Washington football team at New England Patriots game. I will be watching the New England Patriots at Washington football team game. With the Steelers injury, they have some injuries, and one from last night. Pat Fairmouth, tight end drafted out of Penn State this season, is currently questionable, and so we'll see how that affects their depth at tight end. Don't think Eric Ebron will be playing in this game. He may have to now, though, considering the fact that Pat Fairmouth is out. He's currently questionable, Eric Ebron is, with an injury, and so I saw him on the sidelines during yesterday's game, and don't know what his availability will be like for that game, and interesting to see how that works out, because they do have Zach Gentry, another good tight end, but you don't want a guy to play all 4 quarters of the game in a preseason game, and I think that it'll maybe give someone else another chance to come in and possibly earn a roster spot if that opportunity was given. The Eagles, though, first round draft pick Devontae Smith is currently listed as questionable. Had an ankle injury in a recent practice, and so we don't know if he'll play or not. I'm kind of doubting it at this point. If anyone that's a starter is questionable right now, most likely they're probably not going to play, and that's just because if they're questionable, there's no point of risking it even more in a game that doesn't matter in the season. And so I think it'd be very smart of the Philadelphia Eagles to not play Devontae Smith in this game. Moving on to Friday's game. This game will be played at 4 p.m. Pacific time. The Atlanta Falcons versus the Tennessee Titans. And Julio Jones faces his old team in the first week of the preseason. Julio Jones is listed as questionable right now. And like I said, probably will not play either way, even if he is 100%, just because he's a starter and they don't want him to be injured. And even if he did start, he probably wouldn't play much anyways, maybe a series or two at the most. And, Ryan Tannehill probably will play a series and will probably be done for the day. And another injury for the Titans, Brandon Kemp on injured reserve right now, will not play, obviously. And Spencer Pulley, a center. So 2 offensive linemen on injured reserve, and Greg Maben, cornerback, on injured reserve. So kind of knocks into the depth a little bit. The Falcons, 2 guys on injured reserve list: Sterling Hoffrichter, a punter, and Jaden Graham, a tight end, on injured reserve. None of those guys are starters, to my knowledge, and so we'll see who fills in for them in their second and third string roles. The Bills versus the Lions, the game that really won't mean much. Just the Buffalo Bills have a lot of depth, especially at the quarterback position with Mitch Trubisky and as the backup, and obviously Josh Allen, who just got a huge, big signing extension, and I think it'll be good to see Mitch Trubisky play, because he'll probably play a good portion of the game. I think we'll have Josh Allen play probably a series, 2 series at the most, and then Mitch Trubisky will come into play, and he'll probably play up until late second quarter, so he'll get a lot of time in. And Jake Fromm, another good quarterback, so they got depth at at quarterback, and so I think that they'll definitely win this game for sure. And the Lions, it's going to be a rebuilding year, new head coach, a lot of new faces on the team. The Buffalo Bills will be without wide receiver Emmanuel Sanders, they newly acquired during the offseason, and older guy Emmanuel Sanders, and we'll see how many seasons he has left in the NFL, especially taking an injury so later in the season. The Lions, though, will have to play without DeAndre Swift, and the guy obviously wouldn't have played much anyways. Currently listed as questionable. Same with Emmanuel Sanders of the Buffalo Bills. And so those guys will not be in the game for those teams most likely. And it'll be interesting to see who fills in their place and how well they do. But the Lions, really, this is a game for them to just see how they stack up versus an elite AFC team, and a team that made it to the AFC Championship just this past season. The Cowboys and the Cardinals, two teams that faced off in this past season, 2021. The Cowboys played in the Hall of Fame game just yesterday, and they have one game more than every other team in the free agency or the preseason, and they have a lot of injuries that they're dealing with right now, and most of their players that are injured are star players. Dak Prescott listed as questionable. As I mentioned, we talked about the shoulder injury that just recently happened. He will not play. DeMarcus Lawrence, defensive end, very valuable player to that defense that really isn't that strong anyways, but without him, they're even worse. And he's listed as questionable, most likely will not play. Tyron Smith, offensive tackle, questionable. A team that really has tried their hardest to rebuild their offensive line, and he's questionable, so most likely will not play. So I really think the Arizona Cardinals are going to come away with this game with a victory, and mostly just because of the Cowboys' lack of depth, anyways, but mostly because their lack of depth at star players and positions that they really need: quarterback, defensive end, offensive tackle, and Amari Cooper will not be playing, already ruled out for the game that is being played on Friday. And so unfortunate there, but they do have a lot of depth at receiver. We saw it last night, and I think that they'll do fine with Dak Prescott, our quarterback, and later on in the regular season, and he'll be able to distribute the ball to all those playmakers, and they'll do just fine. The Arizona Cardinals themselves do have a couple of injuries themselves, especially at the wide receiver position, where they're very deep in depth. Rondale Moore, A.J. Green, and Christian Kirk all ruled as questionable projected starters, all three of them, for the team. And so they won't be playing, so we'll probably see some second string guys in there. And I don't think that affects them that much. As I mentioned, already very solid depth at the wide receiver position. So Arizona Cardinals, I think, will come away with this win in their first preseason game of the season. The Dolphins at the Bears, a game that will probably be a lot more closer than people will expect, and it would only be close in a preseason game. And why that is, you may ask, is because the Miami Dolphins, obviously Tua Tagovailoa, we're going to get a great look at him and how he's done during the offseason and how he's gotten better or possibly gotten worse. But the Bears have Justin Fields, obviously quarterback, and we'll get a great look at him and see how he does versus in the NFL. But if he doesn't do well, they do have Andy Dalton, a guy who's been around the NFL for a very long time, and so I think that will help him out big time, especially if Justin Fields is a struggle. And they do not have a lot of depth at wide receiver, and their offensive line is hurt right now. They got that three guys that are questionable, one that's already ruled out. And so they're going to struggle, but I think Andy Dalton's going to try and figure out a way to pass the ball, and hopefully will hopefully will get them this win. And I think that the Dolphins will come away with a win in this game. Or excuse me, I think the Bears will come away with the win in this game. Just the Dolphins really do have a chance, but a lot of their star players are injured. And if this was a regular season game, definitely the Dolphins win this game. But just for the fact that Chicago has a better second string quarterback and probably a better second string defense than the Dolphins, that I'm giving them this game. Xavier Howard, Will Fuller, Salvin Ahmed, and Preston Williams are all on the injury list. Xavier Howard ruled questionable. Salvin Ahmed also ruled questionable. Will Fuller serving a suspension right now, and Preston Williams is ruled out, the wide receiver. So a big loss for that team. Denver Broncos at the Minnesota Vikings. A game that, if you look at this game on a schedule, you probably aren't really intrigued by this. None of these teams are great right now, but Drew Lock is really going to prove something this season, and I think it really starts in the off season. If he can't take the preseason serious and do well in games where he's not even playing versus full starting NFL rosters, then he won't do well against starting NFL rosters at all. And so he really needs to step up in a big way and do well during these preseason games in the series and two that he gets. And I think that really he does have a short leash on him. And if he doesn't do well this season, they'll definitely be drafting a new quarterback, or possibly trading for a new quarterback. And this is a game that I'll be watching after the Chicago versus Miami game is over, and I'm interested to see how this game goes. And Kellen Mond, the new backup quarterback for the Vikings, I'm excited to see how he does. And so for that reason, I have the Vikings winning this game. Just a lot of more depth at the quarterback position for the Minnesota Vikings, and I think that Kellen Mond is going to do quite well in his preseason debut. But he's going to have to do it without a couple receivers. D.D. Westbrook, Justin Jefferson ruled is questionable right now. D.D. Westbrook probably would have played a decent amount in this game, but probably will not even play at all now. And Justin Jefferson probably would only have played a series or two, if even. And now he won't play. He probably has zero chance of coming in the preseason this season. And that's not the worst thing that could happen to the Minnesota Vikings team, as long as he is there for week 1 of the NFL season. I think that they will be okay with that. Now, Cleveland versus Jacksonville. This is a game that I'll be watching, and really only for one reason. That's to see Trevor Lawrence's NFL debut. And if I was Urban Meyer, with Trevor Lawrence being arguably one of the best quarterbacks we've seen in all of college football, possibly ever, I think that I would give him maybe most of these guys, your starters, which the Jacksonville Jaguars really don't have a main starter like, for example, the Titans, a team in their division, Derrick Henry. They don't have a player like that on offense, or really defense for that matter. They don't have playmakers like that, like the Cleveland Browns do with Baker Mayfield, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham Jr., Nick Chubb. There's 4 guys right there that will maybe not even play, and if they do, they'll play maybe a total of 2 drives at the very most. But I think that you want to give Trevor Lawrence up to 3 to 4 drives, and just for experience, and no more than that. And I'll be interesting to see if he does give him that. And I think that this will be an interesting game, and I think that honestly Jacksonville has a chance to pull it off with, they have Gardner Minshew as their backup. And thinking about this at first, I thought that the Browns win, but now thinking about Gardner Minshew being their backup quarterback, I think that really helps them a lot, big time. If Trevor Lawrence is to struggle, Gardner Minshew will probably play a lot of the first half, and basically he'll probably play the parts of the first half that Trevor Lawrence doesn't play. So if Trevor Lawrence plays 4 series and half a quarter, then Gardner Minshew will play a quarter and a half and turn in his work. And so I think that will be interesting to see. But right now the Browns got some injury problems to deal with right now. Anthony Schwartz, wide receiver, is questionable. Odell Beckham Jr. is questionable. So both those guys will not be playing most likely, especially Odell Beckham Jr. Probably a guaranteed no. And so, hoping to just have him for week one. Odell Beckham Jr., he's had a lot of injury problems lately. And, I don't know if he's injury prone, but it's kind of starting to seem that way. And, we'll see if that's the case. And, it's, you need a guy that you can rely on and not get injured every season. And that just seems to be the case with Odell Beckham Jr. And for him, it's not little injuries; it's season-ending injuries, which is very unfortunate for him. But you got to be able to provide for your team at the same time. DJ Chark Jr., wide receiver for the Jags, probably their best wide receiver, is questionable, so most likely will not be playing for them. And you want Trevor Lawrence to get some experience with the first string guys, but without DJ Chark, that's going to be hard for them, and they're going to have a tough time with that. The New Orleans Saints at the Baltimore Ravens, game on at 4 p.m., and I think that the Baltimore Ravens will most likely win this game, and I think, they just have a lot more depth all over the place, whether it's quarterback or running back, receiver, and obviously they have much better depth at defense. Not saying the Saints defense is bad because they had a decently solid defensive line last year. It was just the DBs and the defensive line need to work together, and they could be a whole lot better than what they are now. Not a whole lot of major injury for either of these teams, so that's good news for them. So we're not really going to talk about the injury list for them. Battle of New York, the New York Jets to New York Giants, and both these teams young, trying to rebuild, especially the New York Giants. And for this year, for the New York Jets, as I mentioned, I think it's a make or break season for Daniel Jones. And if he does not perform well this season, I think that he's definitely out of New York. And, the Jets have some injury problems of their own, but new head coach Robert Saleh coming in, and I'm excited to see how he'll do this season, and I think that he can do well and give him a good defense, but they're going to have to figure out the offensive side of the ball as well. But right now, first round draft pick Elijah Vera Tucker, guard from USC, is currently ruled as questionable, and unfortunately probably most likely will not play and not get the key experience in the preseason that's needed to help some guys in week one of the regular season, and just helps the guys not be so nervous and have the jitters that some don't have, that some do have when they don't have the when they don't have the pre-experience for it. Quinnen Williams, defensive tackle, ruled out, and unfortunate for them, but you'd rather him not play in this game than have him get injured in this game and not be ready for week one and then play in the regular season. New York Giants, a couple injuries themselves. Saquon Barkley still not ready from the torn ACL injury, and he's ruled out right now. Kenny Golladay, newly acquired receiver from the Detroit Lions, ruled as questionable, probably will not play. So a lot of players not there for the Giants, but I think that they are going to pull this game off, and it's going to be a very sloppy, probably low-scoring game, and we'll see what happens then. But I got the Giants winning this game. The Bengals at the Buccaneers. Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming off a Super Bowl, returning 22 of 22 Super Bowl starters. Can't ask for much better of an offseason. And they didn't make many transactions. And so they pick up quarterback in the first round of the draft, Kyle Trask. It's a very solid prospect, and so I think that that's going to help them big time in this game, and I think that no doubt that they're going to win this game versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Bengals, besides their first string guys, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon, there's really no one on the offensive side of the ball outside of them, and there's a huge drop off, which is not good for their depth, and is not good for if someone is to get injured during the NFL season. And why the Bengals did so bad last year is just because they did not have a good backup quarterback option for Joe Burrow. They really were not set in a good way at all for that. The Texans at the Green Bay Packers. Texans probably going to be the worst team of the season. May not even win a ball game, and not much injury news for them. But Deshaun Watson, he's had some off the field stuff going on, some other issues, but right now ruled as questionable. So the chances of him playing are very slim. But if we were to see him, that would be very, very interesting. I don't even think that he's been going to the camp, and just for many reasons, whether it's him not wanting to be with the team or the other off the field stuff that is happening in Deshaun Watson's life right now. But the Green Bay Packers lucky to have their quarterback around right now, but a game that if they lose, it's going to not look good for their whole depth chart, and this should be an easy game for the Green Bay Packers to win. Chiefs versus 49ers, rematch of Super Bowl 54, and the 49ers are going to be a lot better this season without their injuries, but right now they're dealing with some Eric Armstead and Samson Mabuka. They're going to be without two starting defensive ends. They have a lot of depth at that position, but really interested to see how D'Amico Ryans will be able to coach some of the younger guys at the defensive end position and scheme against stopping Patrick Mahomes for the first couple of drives, and then Chad Henne for the second drive, the second stringers, and will it be interesting to see how that plays out. Not much news for the Chiefs as far as injuries go, but I do have the 49ers winning this game. I just think that they have a lot more experience than the Chiefs do, and huge drop off from Patrick Mahomes to Chad Henne, and as far as receivers and running backs go, there's also a big drop off there. The 49ers, not as big as a drop off, so some good consistency there that's going to really help them out. The Los Angeles Chargers versus the Los Angeles Rams, 7 o'clock Pacific time, and this will be an interesting game. The Rams, we'll see how Justin Herbert does against this solid Rams defense, and no real injuries for either of these teams, and so I'm going to be interested to see how both these teams look, and they're going to be pretty much full, with all their players in, so I'm interested to see how they do. Right now the Chargers are favored by 3 points, but I think the Rams defense is going to be a little too much, and they're going to come away with this victory. I'm going to be watching this game. It's going to be a very fun game to see how Justin Herbert does against a elite solid defense. The Seahawks versus the Raiders, a game that, as a Seahawks fan, will be a big telltale of how well we'll do this season, especially at depth at defense, which really worries me and every other Seahawks fan most likely. And we'll see, they got a lot of guys on the injury report right now. 2 linebackers and a corner ruled as questionable, and the defensive tackle also ruled questionable. And really the Raiders only have Darren Waller ruled questionable, who wouldn't play much anyways. But I want to see how these guys can do against some equal talent, and see what we need to improve on as far as depth. And it will be an interesting an interesting game to see for us, and just how the defense is looking so far, especially in the first couple of drives with our starters out there. Will be a lot of interesting stuff to see how, what our scheme is against Derek Carr, and, what will happen, because they're going to have 2 good running backs, Kenyon Drake and Josh Jacobs, and that's going to be a pretty dynamic duo. Not many people are talking about it, but I'm here to say it right now. That's going to be a very good duo in this upcoming season. I do have the Las Vegas Raiders winning this game. Marcus Mariota is going to come in and play a lot of this first quarter, very similar to Gardner Minshew type situation, and he's going to help them out big time. And the Seahawks' depth at their first string for defense is already not that good, so it's not going to be much better for second string. So it probably won't be that close, and hoping it will be if the offense can keep up. But the Seahawks do have good offensive depth everywhere besides quarterback and offensive line, because Geno Smith, I mean, jeez, come on, give me a break. But, receivers is very good at depth. Running back is very good at depth. But keeping those guys healthy has always been a problem for us, it seems. But really, offensive line has always been a problem for us, even on the first string and during the regular season. So it'll be interesting to see. Final game of the first preseason week on Sunday, the Panthers versus the Colts. This will be a very interesting game. Two quarterbacks coming to new teams in their first season after, being drafted to teams that they did not do too well on, and this is really redemption for both these quarterbacks, and I'm excited to see how this game goes. And the Panthers probably have a lot better of a receiving core than the Indianapolis Colts, and that's really helpful for Sam Darnold. And hopefully that, I don't really think that it's time to give up on Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback in the NFL, but if he doesn't get anything done this season, then it definitely is. A.J. Boye for the Panthers will not be able to play, neither will Shaq Thompson. A.J. Boye currently serving a suspension. Shaq Thompson is ruled questionable, most likely will not play in the game. But Carson Wentz most likely may not play in this game either. Suffered a recent injury and will have shoulder surgery, and most likely will not play. Neither will Quentin Nelson. So big loss for that right there. That's some key pieces. And Jacob Eason most likely will be the starting quarterback for that team. And he definitely does not compare to Sam Darnold. And I think that the Carolina Panthers will win this game by a good amount of points. So overall, predictions for this game: who will win? Washington football team at the New England Patriots. I have the New England Patriots winning that game. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Philadelphia Eagles. I have the Pittsburgh Steelers winning. Tennessee Titans versus the Atlanta Falcons. I have the Atlanta Falcons winning that game. Buffalo Bills at the Detroit Lions. I have the Buffalo Bills winning that game. Arizona Cardinals versus the Dallas Cowboys. I have the Arizona Cardinals winning that game. Miami Dolphins at the Chicago Bears. I have the Chicago Bears winning that game. Denver Broncos at Minnesota. I have Minnesota winning that game. Cleveland Browns versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have the Jags winning this game. New Orleans Saints versus Baltimore Ravens. I have Baltimore winning this game. New York Jets versus New York Giants. I have the New York Giants winning this game. Cincinnati Bengals versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning this game. Houston Texans at Green Bay. I have Green Bay winning this game. Kansas City versus San Francisco. I have San Francisco winning. And Seattle at Las Vegas. I have Las Vegas winning this game. And Los Angeles Chargers losing to the Los Angeles Rams. And Carolina beating Indianapolis on Sunday to wrap up week 1. So that will wrap it up for today's video. If you guys have not already, please leave a like down below, subscribe, share this with your friends. Thank you guys so much for watching.